Hello and welcome to my Arts and Crafts. I'm Libby and today I'll be showing you how to use Tim Holtz Distress Mica stains with layering stencils. So here's the card we will be making today with this technique. To get started, I have placed the Pink Fresh Studio Poinsettia stamp set into my Misti, and I will be stamping this with Versamark ink. You can see I have placed it in there sideways so that I could stamp the full image, and then I will cover this first one with like clear sparkle embossing powder. This gives a really cool look, I think. And then I will heat set that. I'm going to stamp another one because I want to try two different like color combos. So I will stamp that one as well. Using a pressure tool helps to get even pressure over the whole thing. For this one, I will be using silver sparkle embossing powder for this one, and I will just cover the whole inked area with that, and I will also heat set that. Once I have heat set both of them, I first put the sparkle one into, or the silver sparkle one into my like this splatter box here, and I've placed the stencil over top. My first stencil actually, this is also from Pink Fresh Studio. It lines up with that stamp set, and then I'm just using a sparkle pen for this first layer. I didn't want to add any color, I just wanted it to be clear, but I thought I would add some sparkle to go along with the Distress Mica stain, so I'm just applying that through. I also used a little bit of water with the water brush pen, but I don't think I actually needed that. Anyway, I've pulled that off. I will next be using the Distress Mica stain in Festive Berries, I think. No, this one is Cocktail Party. That is the one I have used, and you just need to make sure you shake it up really well. And then I'm just going to spray it all over that stencil, make sure it gets into all of the open areas. I will pull it away quickly because you don't want it too much to get underneath the stencil and spread. I then decided I had a lot left over on my stencil, so I am going to just apply that to a plain piece of paper, and I will use a little bit of water and just add that all over the paper, and I'll just heat set in between so I can get some different colors on there, and that's just a way to reuse that extra mica stain on there. So then the second layer also has some more poinsettias on it, so I just added that, and then I'll add more Cocktail Party into those sections. And then I will lift that stencil. You want to make sure you have it taped down really well. So again, little mica stain will get under there and leak into the other areas of the stencil. It does happen a little bit because it is a liquid product, but to minimize that, tape it down and pull it up fairly fast. So I will pull up that stencil and I will put that aside. I'm just going to add this to the paper I had earlier, any remaining, just so that I don't waste any of it. And then I will set that aside to dry as well. And then for this next layer, I'm going to be adding, I believe I used Wicked Elixir on this one. It was either Wicked Elixir or Fresh Balsam, but I used both of them. And then I just sprayed that through the stencil, and then I will do the same thing. I will add the excess on there, and I will set those and let them dry. I find that after you have done, if you are doing two, after you have done your first layer, and then you let that one dry and do the other one, and then once you've washed everything off and everything and come back, it's dry enough to add the next layer. So this next color is Merry Mint, I believe. Yep, this one is Merry Mint, and this one I think is my favorite color. It's really, really beautiful. I will add that one all over the stencil there, and again, make sure you mix up that mica stain in there so you get all of the mica stain into your thing and all of that shine. And I also suggest that you wash your stencils in between so that nothing gets anywhere and it's not a big problem. I will just, again, dab the extra off on a blank sheet of paper, and then I will go in with the next one. I think this one actually ended up being Wicked Elixir, and the last one was Fresh Balsam. So we'll just add that to the stencil there, and then I am going to just peel off the tape, and I will set this off to dry and do the same thing. It is a lot of the same thing. You just place on the stencil, add your tape, and then you'll just go from there and add your color and dab off all the extra on a piece of paper. I suggest you wear gloves for this. I couldn't find any gloves, so my hands were pretty stained, but it didn't take too long to come off, so that was good. I still suggest that you use some gloves for this, especially if you don't want your hands getting all dirty. But yeah, so I will just add that, and then yeah. So for this next one, for this next layer, I'm going to be using, this one is Shiny Bauble. It's a really pretty blue color. And just make sure to mix that up again. I will add that there, and then I will take that off and do the same thing. One thing to note is it is a little bit harder to line up the stencils as you get more mica stain on there, as it gets a little bit confusing where the lines are. So if you want it to be more clear, I suggest using a darker embossing powder like a gold or a black. And also the silver was easier to find the lines than the clear glitter one was, which, yeah. So if you want to make sure you know where the lines are, or if you want it to be a little bit easier, use a darker embossing powder. But I found I took just a little bit of extra time to find those lines, and it looked really, really cool in the end. So next for this stencil, I wanted a little bit of gray, not too much, so I took Iron Gate and I just sprayed some a little bit onto this sheet of paper I have in my splatter box, and I'm just going to add that through the stencil with a water brush, and this will just give a little bit of color, but not make it like totally gray. And I have covered up all those little areas where there is a poinsettia, or where there's a berry, not a poinsettia. So I didn't get any gray in there, but I decided I didn't even really need those because I was being very, very careful and placing it in the right spot. So next I'm picking up the color Tart Cranberry with my water brush, and I'll just put it on those little berries there. Just adding them into those little berries to give those a little bit of color. And I think this will finish, I think this is the last stencil, and we'll finish up this one. This one, I didn't love the color combination as much as the other one. I think this one that I'm doing right now turned out really, really cool. So this one, again, I'm using the Mica Stain Tart Cranberry, and I'm going over the whole stencil with this. This plays really nicely with that pink we had earlier, and yeah. I will just add that all over there, and I can dry in between to add more layers if you feel like you still have a lot on your stencil, but can't get any more down because it is very wet. So I'll just add more of that on there, and to save some of that mica powder. So I have let it dry overnight. I set them overnight to dry, and I came back, and this is how it looked. I will be using this one today, but I might use the other one another time. I've brought in the Concord and some Concord and Ninth inks. The first one I'm using is Honeysuckle, which you see here. This one I felt went pretty well with the cocktail party mica stain I used, and so I'll just blend some on the top there. I'm heavier at the top, and then I will fade into white near the middle of the sheet of paper. The next color I'm using is Oceanside, and this is a nice teal which goes really well with the Merry Mint, I think. And this one I did the same thing as the Honeysuckle. This one did get a little streaky in the color, but I made it a really distressed background, and it didn't really matter that much in the end. I don't know exactly why it was doing that, probably because the brush was a little wet, but I made it a really distressed background, and I don't think you could even tell. So here I'm deciding between a few different embossing folders, but I decided on I think it's Simon Says Stamp Faceted Snowflakes, and this one is a really, really pretty embossing folder. I ran that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine, and then I wanted to distress it up some more so you wouldn't see all of that streakiness in there. So I went over with my ink pads very carefully, and I colored the raised areas with that ink pad. And I wanted to make sure I liked it, and I think it actually pairs really, really nicely. I decided to add some water. It didn't work too well, and it probably didn't make the biggest difference in the end. But anyway, I just dried that really good, and I tried to add some sparkle here and there, but it didn't really work. There was some sparkle. I think there was some in the embossing folder. Next, I'm going to bring in some white acrylic ink and a water brush, and I will just splatter that all over my background. And I think this really added some distressing to it. So once I have a nice mixed up consistency, I will splatter that all over the background. I added a few big drops here and there just to give it a little bit more texture and kind of hide the streakiness of my blending. So if your blending does not look the best, that is okay. Just make it a really distressed background and have a lot of fun with it, and I think it turns out really, really nice here. And I think the white splatter adds a lot to it. Next, I'm going to bring my splatter box back and also the mica stains. So I brought in the cocktail mica stain, and I opened the bottle. I shook it up and I opened it, and I just used the little nozzle kind of thing, and I splattered that all over the background. I tried to keep it heavier on the pink side, and then I will do the same with the Merry Mint on the other side. If they go onto the other side of the paper, that is totally fine. I think it adds to the stress of it. And I think this really, really brought it all together with the mica stain, mica stain stenciling we did earlier. Next, I'm going to stamp this sentiment. This sentiment is from, I believe, a stamp set. I can't remember the name of it. I will link it down below for you. And then I added this, I added 2 foam squares on this. I fussy cut the sentiment along with the flowers that I wanted to use out. I have a bunch of flowers still that I can use, and they are gorgeous. I think this technique would also work really, really well with a background. I think that would be a really cool background. If you have a background stamp with a layering stencils to it, I think that would be really, really cool as well. So I just put them in the center there, and I will add my sentiment in the middle between those. And yeah, I decided I didn't need that one because it was touching the poinsettia. So yeah, I'm just going to line those all up. And then I decided I wanted a sparkly glitter to go with the embossing powder I've used. So I just cut a little piece. I cut the center out of it to save some, and then I will just add some with some double-sided tape. Next, I'm going to stack this with some cardboard. I did end up taking some of the cardboard off to make it a little bit shorter. It was pretty high, and it added quite a little bit too much dimension in my opinion, which that was a lot of dimension because I think dimension is really cool on cards. So you can see I kind of tore it apart a little bit, and so I'm just going to add a lot of glue to make sure it really sticks to this cardstock. This cardstock is the same cardstock I used for the sentiment, and then I will just make sure it adheres really nicely. And this is the completed card, and I think it turned out really, really cool. I love the mica stain. I think it turned out so cool with the stencil, and yeah, I think it just went really, really well, and I can't wait to use it more. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and come back soon for a new video. If you are interested in any of the supplies I used today, check the description box below. For more inspiration, please consider liking and subscribing, and for even more inspiration, please check out my Instagram and Pinterest accounts at My Starts and Crafts. Have a great day. See you soon!